Welcome back. Happy 2024 to everyone. This is our first Monday Mastermind of 2024. How exciting. I'm Stephanie Gillison from Louisville, Kentucky. And today I'm ecstatic because I happen to know this speaker very, very well. And I know that he has mastered what we're going to be covering today. And so, some of us have come into real estate and carved out a niche that a very few people touch. And Michael Higdon is one of those. So today we're going to be navigating estates and probate and recession-proofing your business. And so that is what today's mastermind is about. Make sure you put any questions and comments in the chat, and we will save some time toward the end of the series to have you unmute your mics and ask questions to Michael. So Michael Higdon, welcome so much. Give us just a little bit of background about you, how long you've been into real estate and where you reside.
Yeah, sure. I am also in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for having me on. Happy New Year's to everyone. But Louisville market, I've been in real estate. This will be my anniversary is March 1st, 2003. So I'm in my 21st year of selling real estate.
Ooh.
And yeah, been successful seeing all kinds of different markets. You and I, Stephanie, have seen lots of different markets. When I started out, everything was, you could literally put a sign in the yard, 2003 to 2008, and it would sell. As long as you had some capacity to be a great salesperson, it would sell. Then we hit 2008, and we went from 2 million realtors in the United States, and a year later, 2009, we had 1 million realtors. Same on the lender side, and I believe a lot of that was needed to clean stuff out and let the cream rise to the top. And we've seen a little bit of that, recently as well. Without, of course, we haven't had the big hit, but we didn't have the same lending products either. You couldn't. It's not that you fog a mirror and anybody else can get a loan, so you don't have that subprime market. But as I've grown older, and I'm 52 years right now, and I just had a birthday a few years back, and I'll dive into this in my presentation if you want me to. You tell me when to go ahead and share my screen.
Let's do it. While you're getting set up for that, I want to just, it's funny because so many of us that have been in the business a long time, and I'm recognizing so many names on the call today that have been in the business of 20 plus years. And what Michael was saying, back in 2003, 2004, all the way up to 2007, we were put a sign in the yard and it sold. And that was because if you breathed and you could walk and you had a driver's license, anybody would give you a loan. That's how easy it was back then, right? But that is what attributed to the 2008 demise. And and Michael, you'll answer this question. I'm not sure when you specialized and really got into this, specialty of real estate, but, in 2008, when the market all changed and things dried up and so many realtors fell out of the business, that's when I became a short sale expert.
Yeah.
And that's how I pivoted. And that's how I stayed in business, along with a lot of other real estate agents. So Michael, did you get into probates and estates then, or was it prior to?
It was a little bit later than that. I was a single agent. Then I joined a group. I teamed up with 2 other agents here locally when I was with Remax, and I'll dive into that as well. But we did a lot of probates, a lot of short sales, foreclosures, because that's what you had to do, because everything else, the other markets had just kind of dried up. So can you see my screen okay there, Stephanie? Let me know.
Yes, it looks amazing.
All right, perfect. So this, and I'll dive into what I just said. A little background, I know I gleaned on that a little bit. So 20 years, 21, my 21st year, 15 years with Remax, the balloon. This is my 5th year with EXP. I'm a 3-time Icon agent. My anniversary is August 1st, so I'll be 6 years in August. A little bit, my family here, it's my wife, Kelly Kay. She's a local radio personality. We've been married 17 years. It's my son, Jacob, my daughter, Ava, and those are our 2 pride and joy, Poppy and Piper, our pugs. So any pug people out there, woo woo,
Oh.
Shout out to you. So what I always like to say is there's an old saying that if I give you a penny and you give me a penny back, then we just have a penny together, right? But if I give you an idea and you give me an idea, then we both each have 2 brand new ideas. And that's what I love about sharing these ideas. And I totally give all my information out about niches, because if you can come up with a new idea that's going to help put a new system in place for you to help put a new leg on your production table, I like to say that's what I like to do. So this is all a sharing of ideas and hopefully add to your revenue this year. I went to the University of Kentucky, and I was a marketing advertising major. Don't hold that against me, but that was in the School of Journalism. And within the School of Journalism, we always ask the questions: the who, what, when, where, why, and most importantly, the how. And the how is going to be the last and most important piece we cover today. So let's just go through those one at a time. The big who right now, as it applies to probates and estates, is the baby boomers. There are over, this is a great quote, it's estimated there's 45 million households are going to transfer over 65 trillion, that's a T, in wealth over the next 25 years. That's from Asher Chessis with Cerulli Associates. The other point is baby boomers are the wealthiest generation in American history, and they're about to pass down those riches over the next few decades. And that's kind of the reason that and I'll go back to that screen. That's kind of how I stumbled into probate. And probate is just from I guess a Webster's dictionary point, is the legal process whereby a probate court supervises the marshaling of a deceased person's debts and taxes and orders the property distributed according to the descendant's will or in its absence to the deceased person's heirs. And a couple of other words and phrases you want to know if you choose to work with probates and estates is testate. That's if someone who dies does have a will. Their living will means it's testate. Intestate refers to someone who dies leaving no will. So you want to get very familiar if you delve into that area. A testator is the person who has written and executed a last will and testament that is in effect at the time of his or her death. It's the person that makes the will. And an executor or executrix is someone who is responsible for the executing or following through on an assigned task or duty of that will. So that's kind of the who. The when is right now. I like to call this a recession-proof business. And when is our next recession? I don't know. We could be within it right now. You have to look at the numbers, but I never want to have that be an option for me of not having some place to go or something to do. Not to sound morbid or anything, or with anything I do say, and that's why I put disclaimer in there. Every month is a new opportunity, because every month I'll get a new list of people that have passed away. Again, not to sound morbid, that's just part of the business. We're all going to that big real estate place in the sky one day. So just know that. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting to wait for the perfect system to come along, for the perfect time to get doing this? Right now is the perfect time, because there is such a huge opportunity and transfer of wealth that's going on. And this next quote is, you have to be really bad before you can be good at doing anything. I have failed so many times, and I was horrible when I first started making calls to estates and just not being scripted with anything, expireds, cancels for sell by owners. You got to be really bad to pick up that phone the first time. The problem is most people don't want to even take the time to be bad. You want the business to either come to you and say, you know what, I'll wait till that perfect system's in place. It's never going to be perfect. Get started today so that you can be good at it tomorrow. The where, who, what, when, why, where. So the where is, where do you work? And really, so I'm in Jefferson, Oldham, Spencer, Shelby. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. So these are the immediate surrounding counties for where I live. I actually live in Shelby County, right on the corner of Jefferson. But most of our estates, from a demographic wise, from the biggest population wise, comes from Jefferson County. So that's where a lot of my focus is. Do you focus on one area of town? I do sometimes, but it depends upon where those estates are. There's certain areas of town that I don't want to go just because the price point is a lot lower, or I may not feel safe in that area. Multiple states, if you're licensed in multiple states, you can cover multiple states. The great thing about Florida, and I mean, I'm Kentucky, of course, but I've got some friends in Florida that talk about, if you're on a coastal area, a lot of those owners are absentee owners, and they're, if they pass away, you're calling them in Pennsylvania, you're calling them, in New York, multiple areas. So you can work those multiple states. The truth is, it doesn't matter where you live, because people will be passing away all over the country, all over the world for that matter. The why. As I mentioned, 2012, I was 40 years old. And at that time, by design, a lot of my friends and family members were passing away. Guys I went to college with were calling me and saying, hey, Michael, my mom just passed away. She was 75 years old. She was 80 years old. My grandfather passed away. And so that's kind of how I fell into this. And these people, sorry, I had a feedback there. They didn't know what to do. They'd never been an executor before. There was a need that helped me kind of create this system. And I decided to be more intentional about that. Excuse me. There is our local newspaper is called the Courier-Journal. And we kind of lucked into it that we found out that the second Tuesday of every month, they printed every estate, every person that was an executor in that newspaper. And a lot of people didn't know that at the time. And this is probably back in 2012, 2013. So at the time I got my assistant and I said, you know what, let's be more intentional about this. So we went through and created a database because there was no services at the time that were doing this. So we manually, that Friday, would go through and create an Excel database. And then we would go cross-reference all the executors, all of their phone numbers. And it took us literally a day to create that database. But once we got that list, it was gold because then we could go be more intentional about reaching out to these people.
And
So
Michael, I want to
yeah,
hone in on that just for a second because I
yeah,
think that's such an important point. You know, the newspaper published who is the executor or executrix of these estates. That is federal law that any estate must make public notice out so that any debtor or creditor can know about certain person's passing. Okay. So anywhere you live in the United States of America, in your area, that's published somewhere because it's a federal law to put public notice, whether it's in the paper, whether it's online, and maybe Michael, you know more about that now.
yeah.
That is a law that they have to publish that.
And it still is. And I haven't looked at the Courier-Journal in several years on purpose. I try not to look at the news and that stuff, but I believe it's still out there. And it's probably there in your paper. You just didn't know it between the sports section or whatever. I found it by accident. We were just like, I mean, it was one whole page, sometimes two pages, depending upon how many people had passed away or filed the probate actually the previous month, because it's only published in there once they do go to the courthouse or the county clerk's office and file the probate with the county. So it's something to look out for. You may have that list right under your nose, but when we'll get to that a little later, it's going to be easier to have somebody do that for you. So we look at the why. You know, why do this? Well, if you're looking to add another leg on your production table, and I use that analogy. Imagine a table with only one leg on it. It's not going to be a very stable table. So in my experience in real estate, I've called expireds, called for sale by owners, past clients, sphere of influence, just listed, just sold. These are all the people that I drill down every single day. I've got a list and check mark. I'm a highly prospecting every agent every single morning. I'll spend 3 hours every morning calling all these people, including probates and estates. And that's become a very strong area, is that as well. Within different markets, sometimes there's not a lot of expireds. Our last year, you only have like maybe one or two every day, and everybody and their brothers calling them. So you've got to find other ponds to go fishing in, as I like to say. Another reason these are great to sell is they're normally vacant a vast majority of the time. There's nobody living there anymore, so you don't have to worry about getting someone out, evicting them, or having to go in spruce the place up sometimes. But the executor has to sell these properties. A lot of the times, once you've determined is anyone in your family keeping the property, if it's a no, then they've got to sell those to settle the estate. Another great thing is they're a great investment opportunity, whether you're going to be a buy and hold or a fix and flip. So if you're an agent that's involved with multiple investors, man, there's not a lot of bank-owned properties. When the last time you found foreclosures or short sales? That market's just gone down. It's on its way back up, but there's so many investors that have gotten involved in the probate market because that's the next natural area to move into because it's a great investment area. And now we move on to the how, and this is probably the most important part of implementation, and if this is really something that you want to do. So the first area you want to start with, and we touched upon this, is having a lead source. How am I going to create that list? The first thing you can do is you can go direct to your county courthouse, your county clerk's office, and when you go in there, they're going to have either a computer or a person that manages this, and this is a great time to, if you're doing this manually, make a great relationship with the person in each county that you're going to be working, because if you're going in there once a week or sending someone in there as a representative for you as maybe a VA or an assistant to pull these numbers, the great thing about that is you're going to get them first. You don't have to wait for a provider to send those to you. It's going to be fresher data to you. When you're pulling that out, you're going to get the name of the decedent, the address. Make sure, because there could be multiple addresses in there. So you want to have all real property that's associated with that estate that you're recording. The name of the executor or administrator, personal representative is how they're going to be listed on a lot of these. Executor is if it's a testate, administrator if it was intestate without a will. You want to record the date of the probate, the name of the attorney on there, if that's available. Get any and all information that you can find relating to that file. And then you can go back and sit down and you can go through your PDA, your MLS. There's a great system called Forewarn that a lot of people use to find phone numbers of the executors, phone numbers of the estate itself. Spokio, Zaba Search, Google, White Pages, just some great resource sites you can use for a search. And then create a database using Excel. If you have a great CRM that you like to use, record those names because you're going to want to keep track of those some way, shape, or form. This is the slow process. If you're doing this manually going to the courthouse, that's the slow process. But as I said, the positive thing about that is you have the data that's very fresh. And getting back to my Courier Journal story, we were doing this every Friday, my assistant Darcy, and I said, Darcy, this is ridiculous. We're losing a whole day doing this, and there's got to be a better way. And there was. So we started to seek out, how can we find a better lead source? Is there somebody that does this for us? Stephanie, questions on that I could answer? Anybody that's popping up yet?
Well, I think that's the big thing. They're like, how do we do this in the easy way, Michael? So you're leading right into it.
So yeah, there's multiple lead sources out there. I will tell you the one that I use on this list is US Probate Leads. I've used them for years. I believe they're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's a company you can go reach out to if you have a relationship with probate attorneys locally. That's one place you can start with. US Probate Leads. I think I spend $188 a month on the leads that they send me. All the leads, ATL, I think is their initials online. MTI Education Services, they have a data providing service. That's a great link as well. That's where I have a lot of my systems and have learned some things in the past. Mike Torres International is the proper name for that. Probateleads.com. Some of these you'll want to do your research because some serve different states and some don't. I know, I think Probate Leads doesn't serve Kentucky, but it is heavy in the West and the Southeast other than Kentucky, but they haven't gotten to it yet. So that
Michael,
is
working with these lead sources, are they providing you all the necessary information? Like, for example, the executor, executrix cell phone numbers, email addresses, they're giving you everything.
Great question. That's right to my next slide. So this is the lead source in the format and how I get it. So US Probate sends me over a file, and I would say on average, there's 150 to 200 names a month that I get on that. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Again, not to sound non-compassionate, but it depends on how many people filed a probate or passed away recently on that list. And that comes to me in an Excel file. And what's included in that is I get the decedent's name, the decedent's address, city, state, zip code. I get the personal representative's name, address, city, zip code. And I also get multiple phone numbers with that. So I'll get 3 or 4 phone numbers with that. And I'll also cross-reference that on Forewarn. It's a great website. I highly recommend that because they'll list you probably the last 7 phone numbers that the personal representative may or may not had. And that's the only thing I wish they did provide is an email. And I'll delve into that, how I'm kind of tricking people to send me their email on a few more slides. But the phone numbers is most important because you're going to want to either call or text them in the future. But you can start out with the address, and they also give me the estate attorney's and the estate attorney's phone number on that. So there's just a ton of information on that. And then I've got a VA assistant that kind of processes that information for me. And what they're doing in that process is they're formatting that list. And there's several things that they'll do on that list for me because not all that information is going to be stuff you're going to call on. So the first thing they look at is zip codes. There's areas in town like 40210, 40211, 40212 that it's a lower price sales point. It's an area of town that I don't really sell a lot in. So that's a zip code that I just have taken off the list. I know I'm not going to be selling in that area. A lot of these times they'll send you, if the decedent died and they were living in an apartment complex or a retirement home or a nursing home, they're going to send you that address. You're not going to market to an apartment or a nursing home. Or, some people you may call and say, hey, did your grandma have any other real property? For me, again, this is just for me and my system. You can do whatever you want, but I'm not marketing to nursing homes right now for property they don't know. On this list, it says same names or spouses or survivors. I learned from a compassion standpoint that I'm not marketing to a surviving spouse. It's just not something I do. I try to put myself in those shoes, and I've lost 2 mothers and a dad. So I'm just kind of like, if my wife passed away and somebody called me a month later and say, hey, I saw that your husband died. Do you have a house you need to sell? I don't make that call. I know some realtors that do, because sometimes the memory of that house may not be one that you want to hold on to. So they could be moving in the next 6 months. For me, if it shows up that John Smith is the decedent and Mary Smith is the survivor on that, I'm not going to call them. And that's one that they take off my list. The next thing my assistant does is it gets on the MLS and looks for, is it currently active? Has the property been pending or has it been sold? By the time sometimes I get this list, some of these are active on the market. If it's a cash sale, it could be pending, or they've sold a lot of times. And I'll also have her go through the PVA tax records because they'll sell for sale by owner. Somebody within the family may decide that they're going to keep it or buy it from the executor. So you'll want to kind of, it saves you maybe a stamp or a call just saying, hey, this is Michael Higdon. Yeah, we already sold it. Or my nephew's keeping it. Or there's just a myriad of things that I do on the front end to save me time on the back end from calling a list. It's not gonna be worth it. Questions on that? Okay.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Can you easily tell if it's a surviving spouse versus a relative that has the same last name?
Yes, but from the list that I have, it's normally the same address. So it's Mary Smith on 1050 Baker Street. That's John Smith at 1050 Baker Street. They're normally going to be at the same address. Now if it's 2 individuals, like if maybe it's a brother and then a brother passed away and they're living in the same address, I've just found out 90 to 95% of the time it's going to be the surviving spouse. And I've had some, I made those calls early on, and I've had some people like, look, my husband, God, he just died, a month ago, and it was not a good call. So maybe, but I do know some realtors that do make those calls, and I've had some success. Again, for me, I don't go down that road. So now our next slide here. Now you have your list. What do you do now? This is the time to take action. Okay, you're going to send out your first letter. You're going to make your first call. You're going to call the attorneys. You're going to visit the property. So what I do is I have sorry about that. I'm sorry, guys. Your letter in any communication should always be one of compassion. So a letter that I send out is, looks like this. I know you can't read that, but I'll kind of read through it real quick. It's like, we are writing, dear so-and-so, we're writing regarding the estate property located at blank. Our group realizes this may be a challenging time for you and the individuals involved with your loved one's estate. To that end, we have assisted several families that were going through the same issues that you may find yourself facing today. What we offer is a consultative role that that make the settling of the estate transition as smoothly as possible. Please find listed below some of the numerous services we provide. We'll give you a list of those. If you're considering selling the above mentioned property and need any of these services listed above, we would welcome the opportunity to meet with you to discuss your plans in more detail. Thank you for your time and consideration. Look forward to speaking with you in the near future. Now, I have had people that have called me. Keep in mind, these individuals are getting inundated with mailers. A lot of them are from investors. Hey, this, handwritten, they don't look good, and I'm going to send you an offer. I'll give you $70,000 on the property. Okay. I've had so many people call me over the years just to say, hey, I called you because your letter had just a different tone to it. It was more compassionate. It was more caring. And that's the position that you want to take initially. And I will send out, I've got a flyer that I send out that this was in a local small paper in J-Town that just talked about me, my wife, and just my direction, my niche that it was purposeful that I wrote it with the guy to talk about how many estates I'd done. And that was kind of the niche that I serve in this area. And so I send that over there and those together along with my letterhead on that and a card. What card do I send out? That right there. And it says probate realtor on that. So you can imagine they're getting cards from other realtors as well that may have just a generic information. If you put probate realtor on there, they're going to line those cards up, and that's one that may stick out to them. So anything you can do to maybe tweak your personalized offer to them is going to be a great thing. The second one I send out, and this is part of the system that I found with the MTI data or Mike Torres systems. This is the next is a 5-letter system, and it talks about this is where we want to get them, send them something of value. So what this offers is a website, and you'll excuse me. I wanted just to shoot over to, can you see that website, Stephanie? Okay, great. So this is a website that I purchased that actually through their systems called Probate Toolbox. That is my domain on this. So if you look at this, it shows probably as difficult as it can be. So we're asking them to, hey, visit my my website here and get a copy of the 7 biggest mistakes that you can make when selling probate. This is a 20-page document that goes through at length the probate process that they can get. But the only way that they can get this is if they go in there and register with their email address. So I mentioned I'm trying to sneak in a way to get their contact information. This is another way that we can get that. So I get them that. And I'm also on this one, I'm sending them as an attachment the probate estate executor's duties. It's going to be a separate one from it. It's a 1-pager that I send with on number 1. So they can opt in and get this document from the website, or they can send or they can just look at the attachment that's going to be the probate executive's address. Let me go back to my slides here. The second letter that I'm sorry, the third letter I'm sending out, it's exactly the same verbiage on this probate toolbox. It has some executors and some people that I've worked with in the past to say some nice things about me on this. This one attached is a probate glossary of terms, different terms that they may need. Again, log on to get a copy of the probate estate. So I'll send one out, I'll make a call. I'll send another one out, I'll send a text. So the 5th letter I'm sending to them is how to build your team of pros. You want to get I'll send an attachment of all the contractors, a 1-pager of all the painters, the contractors, clean out companies that they could use locally. The 4th one is going to be the inventory. Here's the local inventory in your area. So it's kind of a mini appraisal that you can put just for that subject property in that neighborhood. Here's kind of some of the similar properties that have sold in your area. Does this look like the property that you're trying to sell for the estate? And the last one is the timeline. Here's the timeline for settling estate in your area. here's all the things that you need to do. Can you imagine having all of these coming to you as an executor, how that's going to set you apart?
Great information, Michael. And it's that many times that you're in their mind, because sending it one time is not going to get it. It's going to get lost in the shuffle and probably in the trash can.
And and between those times, I'm trying to call them, I'm trying to reach out to them and I'm always better on the phones than I am. And I'm just trying to get an answer from them. So then I'll also have a text that I'll send out to them just to find out, hey, has the property sold? Are you still the executor on this? And there's some, other ways you're hitting them every which way you can without being a pest or being respectful. And they have a choice. They can either look at this or they can throw it away. But most people are going to quit after one contact. They're going to send out one letter. They may send one text. They may send out, whatever. I've had people like the third letter that are now like, man, I got to tell you, this last piece that you sent me is fantastic. I've already called two of the people on here, the team of pros that you referred to me. I'm sorry for not getting back to you, but they've already started doing some roof work for me over here. When can you come over and take a look at this and maybe get a good set of eyes on this? Because you seem to be the one that knows what you're talking about and have stuck it out.
Michael, let me ask you something that, because I've done a few of these. I've never, marketed to this, degree. I've just been called upon by attorneys or friends or, what have you. And one of the first things they need out of me is a market analysis so that they understand what it is that they're dealing with. Have you ever worked into your marketing right out of the gate that, look, I deal with estates
Yes.
as it relates to real estate. Number one, you're going to need a valuation on this property, regardless of what your intent is. These are services that we provide, da, 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 da. Do you work that into your marketing in any way?
That is on the very first, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that one of the very first things I put in here is a free market analysis of the property's value.
Perfect.
Professional real estate sales services, worldwide internet marketing, home clean out, maintenance, and home repair. So I'm always putting that out there. And when I do finally talk to the individuals, they'll say, well, how much is it worth? And you say, Mr. Seller, that's going to depend upon how much work needs to be done to the property. And we can do that in a tiered way. You tell me, because you've seen them more than I have, but we'll come over and I'll do my pricing in three ways. One, we're going to price it as is. We're going to look at the bottom of the market. Let's say that your property needs everything, and we'll compare it to similar properties in that area. The second tier, we're going to look at it as if it needed just some paint and carpet that you're going to be willing to do to make it a little more marketable and to add value. Because Mr. Seller, my job is to retain as much equity in the property as I possibly can and honor your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle, whoever's estate it was. You'd want to honor their memory by keeping as much equity as you possibly can, correct?
Yeah.
And they're nodding their head, absolutely, sure. And then the third tier we're going to look at is, properties that are either a flip or fix in the area that show, top notch, or just other homes that have sold where people have done all the deferred maintenance and that, they've kept the property up over the years. And we're going to decide together where the property value is going to fall between there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Great information. And Michael, we're getting a lot of that in the chat, a lot of positive comments. They're so excited to learn this. So you're doing phenomenal. Thank you for this.
Great. So we'll go on to the next slide here. So as I mentioned, so the not only on that form you want to build a network, but for yourself, because if you have an executor that's going to call you down the line and say, hey, do you have, so go ahead and start building a network of individuals. And if you've been in this industry, you probably already have some go-to people, but be more intentional about it, where you can put on paper and say, you know what, Mr. Seller, not only am I an agent, but I can decide. And I've had so many times they say, well, are you an agent or are you an investor? And I say, well, I can wear whatever hat you want me to wear, because I've bought a lot of properties that I've gone in before and either done maybe a wholesale, or I've done a fix and flip, or I've done a buy and hold because it was a really great rental property in that area and it didn't need a lot of fix up. So I can say, or I've got cash buyers Mr. Investor that, or Mr. Seller that will come in here and buy this right now. So you tell me, do you want to put it on the open market and try to get as much money as we possibly can? Or an investor is going to come in here and probably try to knock off 30–40% to make it worth their while, which is fine. If that's what you want to do, we just need to know up front which direction you want to take. So the second one we look at, you want to have an estate company or sale company or a flea market type individual that can come in and say, you know what, I'll take everything in here. I'll take it off your hands and clean it out. You don't have to do a single thing. All right. The other thing, contractors, painters, flooring people, roofers, all the people that you would use probably in like a fix and flip that they would need. A clean out crew that can come in and just say, you know what, we'll junk everything that's in here that the estate doesn't want to hang on to. A title company, a closing attorney, a senior moving type company. If let's say that you do find someone that like maybe the wife is still living there, but she doesn't want the property and needs a little more hand holding, a little more patting of the hand. And that's a role you really want to learn to play and be compassionate with, because you're going to be dealing with older individuals that this is a hard time. And you really want to be there with them and be in that listing appointment. And it's not just about selling a property. It's about, hey man, I know this is tough. This has got to be tough for you. And you've just got to be with these people during the listing appointment. The final thing on here is an estate planning or family law attorney that really comes in handy. And those are not hard to find if you just do, you know, a minimal search. So 3 days, what I normally do is I'll send out my letters to my list once they come in, and 3 days later, I'm going to make the first call. What do you say? The reason most people don't call anybody for sale by owner, expireds, whatever. Stephanie, why do they not call them? Because they're don't know
scared.
They're scared. And why are they scared?
Because they're scared they're going to mess up. And the only way you get good is if you do it and mess up. Look, the one thing I'm going to say this, because this is so true. 25 years in the business, when I was early on making phone calls, man, I got chewed out like no other's business. And now when I get an ass ripping on the phone, it just makes me call more and more and more. I had a call this morning where somebody's like, I'm like, I hear it's a bad day. I'm going to call you tomorrow. You know, you don't give up. Just keep doing it.
Absolutely. And most times they don't call because they don't have a script or they don't know what to say. Well,
That's
guess
right.
what? I'm going to tell you what to say right here. Okay. I've got several scripts. And if you don't know what, I mean, you can fake it before you make it sometimes. So this is a script I use all the time. So I'll call them up and say, hi, I was looking for Stephanie. And I'll say, yeah, this is Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. My name is Michael Higdon. I'm a local real estate agent with EXP. I was calling about the property over here on Baker Street. I believe you're the executor administrator on that. Does that ring a bell? And I say country dumb on that because I'm kind of playing like, I already know that they're the executor on that. All right. But it's a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, that was mom's property, or that was my cousin's, or that was whomever is going to say. Perfect. I wanted to make sure that I was talking to the right person. Listen, I know I'm probably a little premature in the process. And I was just wondering when you and or the estate might be looking to sell the real property in the Baker estate.
Nice.
Hush, hush, breathe, and listen. You can write those down. Hush, breathe, and listen, as my coach Aaron Novella tells me. Because so many people want to keep going on and on and on about, because, you know, if you want to sell it, it'd be great and I could help you out with that. And I think I'm the right realtor for your job. Hush, breathe, listen, and let them talk, because they will tell you a story if you just let them talk. And then you write down what they say. The next question, and these are, you don't have to have questions in these orders, but it's selling is just a series of questions to try to get them to a desired result. Hey, are you going to be choosing the realtor, or is the attorney handling that? Well, I'm going to be choosing the realtor. Great. Will you be choosing them remotely, or will you be coming in town? Of course, that's for executors that are out of town, and you will have executors a lot out of town. Will you be choosing them? Fantastic. Will you be starting the process? When will you be starting the process of choosing a realtor? So we can get back to our questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. That applies with taking listing appointments as well. When? Great. You can get into, well, we're not sure. We're in the cleanout phase. We're doing cleanup. I know exactly where you are. Sounds like you've got a lot going on. Ideally, once you do get that all cleaned out, when did you want to have this on the market or be able to settle the estate? That's the question after the question. Keep drilling down. Well, we're thinking 3 months, 3 months. Perfect. What does 3 months do for you? Well, allows us to do this. If you knew you could, did you want to be sold by that time, or did you want to have it under contract or be done with it? Or did you want to start the selling at that time? You know, and fortunately, in order to get you one step closer to blank, why don't we go ahead and meet at the property? You know, perfect. Will you need help getting the property? Will you need help getting the property prepared for sale? And then what do you mean? You know, do you need a contractor? What are you looking to do? Would it be helpful to email you a market analysis of the property just so you can see what it may be worth in this market? Well, possibly. Great. Are you looking for a private cash buyer? There's your investor hat. Or do you want it on the open market? And like, well, I know I hadn't thought about that. Great. Do you want to capitalize on a really strong seller's market right now? Or do you want to have an investor that could potentially offer you 30% less because they're dealing with what we can call bottom feeders? You can set yourself apart on this. I imagine you're probably getting a lot of letters from investors, aren't you, Mr. Seller? Yeah, you would not believe the stack I'm getting right now. Do you want me to help you make those stop? Well, how are you going to do that? Let's get together the next time that you're at the property, show you how we can capitalize on this market, put the maximum amount of money in your pocket. When is the next time you're going to be at the property? Well, we're going to be over there in a couple of weeks doing some clean out. You know, I'm in that area all the time anyway. I've got my schedule open. I'm going to be around there about Saturday around 10 o'clock. Would you be at the property at that time? Yeah, that's great. Perfect. Let's go ahead and plan on meeting at the property Saturday at 10 o'clock. Would that time work for you? Great. That's called an appointment. Then pre-qualifying questions. You know what? Before we meet Mr. Seller, I just want to ask you a couple things. You know, when you're choosing a realtor, is experience in probate important to you? You're trying to set yourself apart. Oh, great. I've got a lot of experience. Perfect. Are you making the decision with or without your attorney? Now you're trying to be a buffer between them and the attorney, because if the attorney gets in there, sometimes they're trying to buffer you out. All right. Did you know that as the executor, you are in charge of making that decision? That is the sole purpose of the executors, to make the decision for everything involving the will. By the way, Mr. Seller, how many heirs are there? Do you have any other brothers or sisters that's involved with this? How many are getting money from the sale of the property? Important question. Are there any heirs that may not be in favor of you selling this property? Why would I ask that question, Stephanie?
Because they could potentially stop and pause the sale.
There might be a pain in the ass involved in this.
Yeah.
And probably, and I know there normally is. So my job is not to ignore them. I want to go and hit them right between the eyes.
Right.
Who would you, Mr. Seller? Sounds like you want to sell this property, right? Yes. Which heir do you think would be the biggest pain in your butt in selling this property? Now that's after you built a little bit rapport with them, but they'll say, "Oh, that's my brother Bob." Great. Would you mind if I give him a call and just kind of share information I've shared with you, and just show him why it's in his best interest to go ahead and hire us to help him get the maximum amount of money on this? Yeah, sure. Are all the payments or bills being made currently? Why would I ask that? Oh, is there potential? Is it going in foreclosure? Is everything current? You want to make sure that there's no financial issues on this, right? Okay. After the call, be sure to get their email address and send an email recapping the call along with the CMA if that's what was asked for. Okay. Send a handwritten note. Thank you. Set yourself apart. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Send your card out to him again, that personalized probate card that shows who you are. Every chance you can to get in front of them with that information. People don't do note cards anymore. They just don't. It's a personalized thing to put in front of them. Plan on lots of lead follow-up. This is a heavy lead follow-up system. This is not, hey, come out and list it today. I've followed up with people for a year and a half before. They just weren't, one lady didn't want to go in the house for a whole year. She says, it's just an emotional thing with me, but keep calling me back. You sound like you know what you're doing. What's a phone call? It's like, fine. How about, when would be a good time to call you back? 3 months, 4 months? Call me back in 3 months. Call you back. Hey, Betty, it's Michael Higdon again. I know you were having some emotional issues. You're writing down your CMA, which you talked about before. I know it's trouble for you getting in the property. Have you been able to move past that at all? Are you ready to kind of tackle this together? Well, yeah, I am. Perfect. When can we meet at the property? See if we can help you, take care of some of those issues. It's lead follow-up. I've probably 6, 7 times I've followed up with folks, because again, just like the letters and calls, people will quit after 1 or 2 times. So the more you follow up, the more you put that in your system. If it pops up in my system, call this person today. Honor your lead follow-up system. Have a lead follow-up system. Don't just put it on a piece of paper and put it on a bulletin board. Call this guy on such and such. Have a system. Use your CRM and have that system. Specialty marketing, business cards. I've always talked to you about that. Try to set yourself apart with whatever you want to do that's going to help, make yourself stand out. Knight in shining armor versus the bottom feeders. I want to be that guy that's going to help them in a difficult situation, because there are a lot of, I call them bottom feeders. Just again, that's a term that I use to try to set me in there. They're investors. I love investors. But when you're dealing with an executor, I'll tell you a quick story. We had a doctor client that he was getting offers for $70,000 on this property. And I was joking with him. I said, well, hell, I'll give you 71. And he kind of laughed. And we went in there, and it had this orange Berber carpet in there. Stephanie knows the old carpet. And it had this yellowish color walls. And I asked the guy, I said, do you have any money in the estate that you can work with? And he's like, yeah. I said, so what we want to do is we peel those carpets back a little bit. And he had these beautiful pine hardwood floors that probably hadn't seen the light of day in 50 years. And they were immaculate. So I said, do this. Peel all these carpets up. I've got a guy that can come in here and do all this for you. I've got a painter. Let him come over here. He spent maybe $2,500 putting a neutral paint on the walls, brightening everything up. He took some Murphy oil soap, cleaned these floors up. It shined like a new nickel. And we took it from offers of $70,000, put it on the market for $150,000, sold it in 1 day full price. So do you think I showed up as a hero to this guy now?
Knight in shining armor is what you were.
Right. And I've gotten a ton of business from that guy since then.
That's right.
And that's the other piece, is these people the executors are now going into your database as a referral source because you've done a great job for them. We're getting reviews from them saying, hey, I didn't know anything about this. Prospecting will make you a living. Lead follow-up will make you a fortune. Great quote from my old coach, Mike Ferry. So you get your appointment, you get your list, and now you're getting ready to go on your appointment. What do? Well, you show up on time to be better earlier. We talked about this earlier, Stephanie. Mentally, physically, dress nice. Put your Sunday best on, because this is an important appointment. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on listing appointments where they said, man, the last guy that walked in here had on a t-shirt and blue jeans. When you're showing up in a shirt and tie, who do you think got the listing? Because I was on time. I had my material set. I had my CMA. I was pressed. I looked great. Showed up on time, a little bit early, walking around the property. I was dialed in. I was ready to go. And I beat everybody. I beat their pants off, because this is competitive. So bring a copy of the CMA, bring your marketing plan, a list of referrals, and of course, a listing contract, because you're asking for the business. I know you're not ready right now, Mr. Seller. Why don't we go ahead and Why don't we go ahead and sign the contract so I can go ahead and get all the marketing material done. I can go ahead and start pre-selling this property for you, just to see if the buyer's out there. So when we're ready to throw it on the market, bam, we can go ahead and press go, and we're going to get this house sold as fast as we can. Would that work? Go ahead and sign the contract. Okay. Look for areas where you can provide value and guidance, because when you go in there and they're going to say, what do we need to do here? Well, you need to clean the place, just like with the doctor. Pull this carpet up, paint the walls, make sure it's clean and neat. Now, sometimes once you start in one area, you could be opening a Pandora's box if it's an estate. If they've got 1970s decor, short of ripping everything out, I tell every executive, look, I'm not telling you to spend $1 to make $1. I'm telling you to spend $1 to make $10 on that dollar. And if that's not available, then clean everything out. Make sure it's clean and neat, because as soon as you start painting the colors that you want, the next person in there may not like the colors that you paint. So sometimes you can make those improvements to help capitalize on the dollars, but other times it may be best just to sell it as is. That's where your value and your guidance are going to have to come into play with your experience. Is this investment opportunity for you or one of the investors that you work with? That's a question that, the hat that you're going to have to wear. Mr. Seller, I don't know if we can get you the amount that you want, but I do know that there's plenty of investors that are looking in this area, and this would make it a great investment property for one of them. Okay, the question we started with was, why do agents fail? Number one is fear, and they fear because they don't know what to say most of the time. But they won't even try to fail forward, as I like to say. But now you've got a script. There's tons of scripts. Email me, shoot me other messages. I've got a bunch of scripts that work for me, but it's really just asking questions. It's all you have to do. Just think sensibly about if I was selling an estate, what questions would I want answered? And then flip those around and answer those to yourself. Number two, not consistently gathering leads. You may go out one time, you may have your assistant go to the courthouse, you do it one time, you create a list, and you try this once. Well, if I'm fishing or if I'm going to the gym, I'm not just going to go work out once and expect my muscles to grow or to lose weight. Or if I'm eating great, I'm just not going to go eat cheeseburgers after that. It's a consistent lead gathering. That way, every single month on the 19th, I get a new list. And then it all starts all over again. That's why it's recession proof. It all starts over again every single month. Okay. Not getting accurate phone numbers of data, use the systems, chime into a forewarn. Again, once you're paying for this, some people don't want to pay for it. You can do it manually, but you have to be consistent with it. Not making the phone calls or relying solely on inbound response to mail. I don't get as many calls from this letter anymore, inbound to me. I'll get a few, but it's way more outbound than it is people calling me. Number five, not being clear on the offer, what you bring to the table, and why you're different than your competition. You've got to have some confidence going into this. I know exactly what I bring to the table. They asked me, why should I choose you? Because I've been selling estates for the last 12 years, and I've got over 200 estates that I've sold in that time. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you want somebody that just does this kind of part of the time and is not familiar with particularly selling estates, or do you want somebody that's a pro and master at it? Great, that's what I am. Let's go ahead and sign the contract. Let me get to work for you. So,
I think it's important too, because, Michael, you've mastered this and you are an excellent teacher. We've had a lot of positive comments in the chat. So very, very well, great job today. But here's the thing that you all have to remember is these executor and executrix are not pros at being an executor and executrix. It might be the one and only time they've done it, and they don't even know the process. And attorneys aren't that great at explaining what it is that they're going to go through. But Michael knows every step of the process, and you all can easily learn those same processes as well. And that's what they need from you, is somebody that can help coach them through what their job is, right? Because they are completely lost. Their friend, their spouse, their brother, their sister, their mom died. And all of a sudden they've been handed a new responsibility that they've never touched before, right? And so you're there as that hand holder, coach, problem solver, and just take it off their hands, basically, the pressure of it, right? That's why Michael has succeeded at this, because he does know what he's talking about. And he comes in there and gives them a bit of relief, right? From the uncertainty of what it is that they're supposed to even do.
and keeping this in mind, that fear, you're not the only one that feels that fear. Everyone else feels that fear right now. And not a lot of people will call this segment of estates and probates. It's a very, very different call. It's a special call because you do. I mean, I still get bit at by people. They're like, you're an ambulance chasing, no good, blankety blanking, whatever. Okay, man, I get called that all the time, but it's just like, Mr. I totally understand why you would say that. And the only reason I'm calling is because I have compassion for where you are and seeing if I can provide value to you. I've lost, parents and grandparents. So I know that as an executor, you may not know, where to go to. And I just wanted to see, is there anything we can do to take you down that path? Sometimes you'll just get click, hang up, goodbye, don't call me. It's just called normal. But you'll never know till you try.
That's right. Well, we're coming up on time, everybody. Does anyone have any questions? I've monitored the chat. I don't see any there. Just some great positive comments. Anybody have any last questions?
I do.
All right, Laura.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you.
Good to see you. I know I've talked to you before. You're amazing, and I'm so glad you're on today. It's a great resource for us because this is definitely an area where there is a need, and a need with compassion is so important in
Yeah.
this realm. My question to you is, do you bother to take the time to figure anything out about the estate or the person that died or anything before calling? The only reason I'm asking this is my best friend lost her husband a couple years ago at 57. And then she was going to stay in the house. She had no intention of selling. And recently she told me, we were talking about this area of real estate, and she was telling me, which I wasn't aware of at the time, that she received tons of calls and letters. And she, of course, was upset and annoyed because she's a young widow and wasn't intending on selling. So that really bothered her. So do you look into the circumstances all like, oh, the wife is still alive, maybe they don't want to sell, or no, you just call everybody?
I don't. I think, you know, I mean, I'm an analytical by nature, so I think, it would be real easy for me to get that granular in each one of these just to try to find out what the story is. But if you do that, I think you spend so much time, you know, around the perimeter of the dartboard instead of just hitting the bullseye. And I think if you just jump in and just ask questions, that's going to become real evident real quick, and just say, so tell me, you know, what happened? Was this your mom's estate? And they're like, yeah, it was mom's estate. Sometimes I don't even ask what happened. It's just like, do you have a need to sell the property in order to settle this estate? Because once you get in there, you're going to find out what happened, because they're going to start talking. They're going to, you know, share and say, what did you, and they'll say, well, mom passed away in the house, or this, and say, you know, I'm so sorry, first of all, for your loss. And then, you know, just kind of go with that. But again, just convey that compassion. And I never want to overstep that boundary of, so heard your mom died. What happened?
Yeah.
It just, for me, it doesn't come off as sincere. I let them tell me by the questions that I ask.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope that helps. That's all I got.
Awesome. Well, great first Monday Mastermind back for 2024. Thank you so much, Michael. This was awesome. I think people
Awesome teacher. Awesome
yeah,
teacher.
awesome,
Oh my God.
awesome teacher. Look, next Monday, same time, same link, we're going to have Jim Lambright do 2024 goal setting. So as you spend this week, if you have not set your goals for what you want your real estate business to look like for 2024, start working on them. And then we're going to put them in a plan next week so that you can execute and win on that execution. So we will see you next Monday, same time, same link. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks again, Michael. You are awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome,
Appreciate it.
Michael. Thank you so much.
Happy New
You're
Year.
the best.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you. Bye, guys.